Welcome to our webcast, Managing Human Risk in a Digital First SME Economy. This event is brought to you by 7C Managed IT Services in partnership with ASG, powered by 7C and usecure. A few housekeeping notes. All mics are muted, but we'll open these during the Q&A. Please drop your questions into the Q&A box as we go. We'll answer as many as we can. If you'd like us to connect with you afterwards, simply type callback in the chat. Now please join me in welcoming the Managing Director of 7C Managed IT Services, Graham Miller.
Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome. It's great to see so many of you joining us today. We're here to talk about something close to my heart, building winning cultures for cybersecurity in South African SMEs. Technology alone is never enough. Firewalls, antivirus, cloud platforms, all of these matter. But research shows that 95% of breaches involve human error. That's why culture is more decisive than controls. We're here today in partnership with our colleagues at ASG, powered by 7C, and usecure, whose platform is helping businesses like yours to turn people into their strongest cybersecurity asset. Now, before we get into the detail, let's warm things up a bit with a short quiz. Don't worry, no marks will be taken. It's just to highlight how much of a role we all play in cybersecurity. So question number one, what's the most common human-related cyber threat faced by businesses today? And please drop your answers into the chat. You guessed it, phishing. It remains the #1 human-related threat businesses face. On to question number two. Which of these could be a way you get phished? The answer is D, all of the above. Attackers are creative and opportunistic. It's not just about dodgy emails anymore. Question number three. Human error is responsible for more than half of cyber incidents in South Africa. It's true. Between 40 and 64% of breaches in South Africa are linked directly to human mistakes. These quiz results make one thing crystal clear. While technology is essential, it's not decisive. The real differentiator is culture. In our businesses, we've seen that those who navigate the threat successfully are not those with the biggest IT budgets, but those who deliberately build a strong human-centric security culture for organizations. In these businesses, people treat security as their shared responsibility. Mistakes aren't hidden. They're surfaced early so the team can learn. Every employee becomes a sentry, spotting the unusual and asking the right questions. Of course, culture needs reinforcement, and that's where tools like usecure play such a powerful role. Bite-sized training, phishing simulations, behavior tracking. They don't replace culture, they reinforce it. They make security habits visible and sustainable. All of us at 7C Managed IT Services believe trust is the ultimate growth strategy. For SMEs, building a culture of security doesn't just reduce risk. It builds the confidence of customers, investors, and partners who choose to do business with you. I'm looking forward to the conversations today, and thank you to usecure for joining us. Together, we're helping SMEs not just survive in the digital first economy, but thrive. With that, let's get started. Usecure's Alex Campbell will take us through the practical ways to manage human risk in your business. Alex works closely with our partners to build robust cybersecurity cultures within their workforces, guiding them to reduce cyber risk. usecure has grown into a recognized leader in human risk management, empowering over 450,000 users worldwide. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Graham, and thank you, 7C, for inviting us to this webinar. My name is Alex. As you might guess, I'm based in the UK. We help 7C and other partners achieve compliance. We help them with their security awareness training. So if we move on to the next slide, I just wanted to set the scene a little bit about what we're talking about today, which is the human element of user awareness. So as you may know, the environment is changing all the time. Rise of AI threats being one thing, remote working. I imagine a lot of people here are taking this call maybe from home. The landscape is changing so much, whereas the companies aren't necessarily keeping up with it. It usually leads to insufficient training, maybe even lack of policy processes, and just not enough in terms of the human risk being challenged. That is where this figure comes in. So the root cause of 74% of data breaches is caused by the human element. So yeah, sort of hopefully setting the scene there. And if we move on to the next slides, we'll get a bit more into that. So the human risk impact, what we're dealing with here. Can we move on to the next slide? Yep. So the human risk impacts here, what we're dealing with is people are becoming the new target more and more, and that is due to the lack of their awareness. Hackers want to exploit these awareness gaps. There's often a policy ignorance as well, so a lot of people don't necessarily implement the correct kind of policies. Maybe the end users also don't really know what their data actually means and how vulnerable that can leave them. This also is caused by a general lack of accountability generally in a company. It's not necessarily an end user's own responsibility. If there isn't a process in place, a structure in place from the company, then we're all sort of pointing fingers rather than having a secure network. So yeah, that's the impact on end users really. These are the gaps that are left for hackers to exploit. Essentially, this also goes hand in hand with compliance. If we move on to the next slide, we'll have a look at the compliance side of things as well. So some of these compliance requirements that you see outlined in the Africa column there, many of you might be familiar with things like POPI or POPIA, alongside other compliance requirements. Essentially, compliance standards are becoming more stringent. When we've done surveys, we've seen that 86% of SMBs are not confident that they can stay compliant without external support. So people are saying that they actually need support on these things. And about half of them are also saying that they spend too much time on it. So compliance standards, growing stricter, require more of your time. We need some support, and that is where solutions like usecure come in. That's where companies like 7C come in. Okay. So if we move on to the HRM side of things, so HRM stands for Human Risk Management. Essentially, it's important to contextualize what we're doing here as a global thing rather than just a security awareness training. Traditional security awareness training is very reactive. What that means is we typically find that people have just been trying to tick boxes. We do some training, it's one size fits all. A success for that is people have actually done their training, okay? That is a very reactive approach. We want to focus more on ticking the box, but also actually improving user behavior. So a modern human risk management solution is more holistic. It focuses on actually improving an end user's knowledge. It focuses on measuring risk with actual actionable insights. If there is a risk, what can we do? And the good thing is a lot of this that we do, we've built it out so that it's nice and automated and scalable. The important thing is we can actually do this, set up an automated program to focus on what we need to focus on, whether that's for 5 people, whether it's for 5,000 people. It's nice and scalable. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that on the next slide. So I'll tell you how usecure specifically can help with simplifying security awareness training and your compliance. Essentially, the process that we built out focuses on 4 main things. Identifying the risk. We do that by doing a gap analysis. It's essentially a short quiz. Every end user does a 10-minute questionnaire, multiple choice, a bit like what we were doing earlier in the quiz section of the webinar, where we try and understand where your weak points are, what you're good at, what you're not so good at. That then helps us have an actionable next step, which is the training section. ULearn is our training platform. We have micro training, usually about 2 minutes, 3 minutes to watch a little video and then a quiz at the end. So try and keep it nice and short, nice and engaging. And ULearn will essentially then deliver the training that is most relevant to the end users based on what we identified as their gaps. UPolicy comes into that as well. We do policy management so we can help end users be more compliant. We can help your business be more compliant by signing the relevant documents based on your compliance needs. We also have a monitoring section of this. So monitoring refers to UBreach. That is essentially dark web monitoring. If end users use their email, we want to know if there's any data breaches, any leaks. We get a better understanding of how they actually use their emails as well that way. You'll be alerted if there are any new data leaks that show up. Finally, verification, UPhish, phishing simulations. Essentially, we want to target the end users by doing phishing attacks to see if people actually click on them. In theory, they should be trained by this point. We should have a more of an understanding of their weaknesses, and they should be able to plug those gaps. But there's always going to be a vulnerability with the phishing, so we need to keep doing the phishing and verify that they've learned what they've said they've learned. Okay. So I just wanted to give an example. If we move on to the next slide, there's an example of, I guess, the worst case scenario really that could occur. So there was a case here in the UK with a business that essentially was sunk by hackers, and it was due to one password. It was due to one person and one weak password. The business, 158 years old, 700 employees, all gone just because one person used a weak password, and yeah, it wasn't enough. They had cyber insurance, they had typical safeguards in place, but they couldn't retrieve what they lost. So essentially, this sort of goes back to what we were saying before about it being reactive and proactive. Had they been more proactive, this wouldn't have happened. But when it comes to being reactive, this is what the damage can be. This is essentially a worst case scenario that you can experience. Business literally can go bust. On the flip side, we do have a case study that sort of helps us understand the positives of using human risk management solutions. So essentially, we've worked with a company that's provided this. We can provide a bit more detail on this as well if people are interested. We do have it as a full document. But essentially, over the course of 1 year, this customer saw a reduction in 29% of their phishing. So when we started, we did a phishing attack and people were clicking all over the place. Fast forward 1 year, that had been reduced by almost 30%. In tandem with that, they actually increased their user awareness from the initial gap analysis that we mentioned by 34%. So I guess we're reducing, in 1 year, we're reducing the phishing score by a third and increasing the awareness by a third. And all that leads to a better secure environment. In terms of the adoption rate, 94%, that's very typical. Like I said before, the training courses are nice and short, 2-3 minutes, little cartoon videos, they go down very well. Typically between 90 and 100% is the kind of participation that we see. So if you're adopting it right, you will see the results, they will show themselves. But yeah, I think that's all from me. I will hand over to Jacques, who can carry on.
Hi, everyone. Jacques here. I'd like to take you deeper into one of the most overlooked risks in cybersecurity, breached personal information. The reality is many of us in this room already have our email addresses, passwords, and even contact details circulating on the dark web. And I'm not speaking hypothetically. In the next slide, you'll see an example. My own work email address was discovered in a breach. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone here. When we ran a breach scan, we found dozens of exposed addresses, login credentials, some linked to senior staff. Now, think about what that means in practice. If a criminal gets hold of a manager, the CEO's details, They can use those to trick employees into transferring money, sharing sensitive files, or clicking malicious links. An email that appears to come from the boss is far more likely to be trusted, and that's exactly how those scams succeed. In the next slide, you can see a sample of the websites and services where breaches have occurred. Adobe, Canva, even major retailers and software providers. Behind each of these names are exposed email addresses, usernames, passwords, and in some cases, even your physical address. Attackers don't need to hack your firewall to get in. They just log in using stolen credentials, and your business never sees it coming. This connects directly to Alex's earlier point about the Knights of Old case. A single weak password leaked in a breach, led to ransomware, business collapse, and 700 jobs lost. The company had cyber insurance and standard safeguards, but none of it was enough. The weak link was us humans. Now here's the good news. We don't just want to highlight the problem. We want to give you practical ways to address it. As part of today's session, 7C and usecure are offering every attendee a free breach check on request. We'll show you whether your email addresses have already been compromised, and if so, what kind of data is exposed. Beyond that, after today's event, we'll also provide a free guidance report on how to check your email security, protect your credentials, and reduce the risk of breaches leading to costly incidents. This is where human risk management comes in. Training your team to recognize suspicious activity, testing them with phishing simulations, and reinforcing good password and policy hygiene. These steps take leaked data from being a serious threat to being just another risk that your team knows how to handle. So if you take one thing away from my part of this session, let it be this. Breaches are not an abstract risk. They are personal, they are targeted, and it's probably happening right now. The question is whether your business is prepared to detect and respond. I hope that what we've shared this morning has made one thing clear. The risks we've discussed are not abstract or distant. They're very real and they affect all of us. We've shown how breached emails and leaked credentials can be weaponized, how ransomware and weak passwords can bring down even 150-year-old businesses, and how attackers use trust and human error as their most effective tools. We've also shown that there are practical steps you can take to build resilience, and that's where we want to help. As a next step, every attendee here today is invited to schedule a free breach vulnerability assessment. This will give you a clear picture of whether your details or your team's details have already been exposed. And for those of you looking to strengthen your security culture, we're also offering a human risk management readiness check. This will help you understand where you stand today and what actions you can take to reduce risk. Simply email sales@7C with either vulnerability scan or human risk management in the subject line. Please include your contact details, and our team will call you back to set it up. Cybersecurity is not just about firewalls or technology. It's about people, trust, and readiness. At 7C, together with usecure, we're committed to helping businesses like yours turn employees into their strongest line of defense. Thank you again for your time, your engagement, and your commitment to building a stronger, safer businesses. We look forward to speaking with you soon.
We will now open up the floor to some questions, and there are a few questions that were asked in the chat box. One is to you, Alex. They're asking if you can please provide a bit more tips on how they can, as a business, protect and train their employees to become more aware of such cybersecurity attacks like what happened to KNP.
Yeah, Sure thing. And I appreciate, I think I have my camera off, so hopefully people can see me now. So yeah, I can take that one. It's important to do a few things. There's a few things that go into that really. If there's a password leaked that caused the hacking of the business, it's likely that that will have been leaked and we could have seen that first by doing a dark web scan. If we found that that password was leaked, then we would be in a better position to change it. So that's one thing that we can do, initially reacting, essentially beating the hackers to that. We do have a tool in place that will alert you on the day of there being a data breach. So as soon as that information is leaked, we'll scan the dark web, scan it, send you an email, and you'll be able to action it immediately. So we can beat the hackers. That's one way of doing it. Second way, implementing a policy. It's likely that that end user didn't actually know what a strong password was, and that's either because they weren't trained or they weren't told by their company that they needed to do it for, they were politically from a policy there was a requirement for them to do that. We have, for example, a policy where it is secure password construction guidelines. If you implement something like that, the end user knows that they are required to do it. They've signed a contract to say that they will do it. Also, the education side of that is really important. We do have training materials to basically educate users why they need to have strong passwords. So yeah, it's an education thing. I guess it's a company thing, not implementing a policy around guidelines around passwords. Also, another thing, 2FA, having MFA, 2FA enabled could have potentially helped that. So there's some of the key things. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Alex. There was also a question by Christoph Potgieter. He says, hi, how will these breaches be blocked when Microsoft ends its support for Windows 10? And I don't know if it's true, but will we need to buy new computers?
How will these breaches be blocked? So I guess it depends on, when we're talking about data breaches here, we're talking about if there's an email address that has been caught on the dark web. So if you've got a service such as, if you use LinkedIn, for example, and LinkedIn has suffered a data breach, your email address might be caught in that alongside your password, alongside other different data. So we'll still be able to see that. We'll still be able to access that data. Not sure if that answers this question specifically, or if there's another question in there. Maybe, Christoph, we can take that offline and elaborate on that a bit more.
Hi, my name's Adele Pillay, and I'm from Kidshaven in Benoni, Johannesburg. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. I just want to ask, so with the laptops that we use at work, a lot of us the password and the login details are written on the laptop cover, so if anybody's got access to it. So that's the laptop and not necessarily our work email addresses. Is that a risk?
Essentially, yes. I guess it depends what's on that laptop. If you can get into the laptop and there are, I guess, if there's documents on that, then that is a risk. I think that wouldn't be the recommended approach.
Okay.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the recommended approach. Essentially, it all comes down to what's in the laptop. If everything's potentially encrypted, then that might make things a bit secure, but that wouldn't be a best practice that we'd recommend there.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of myself. I mean, my login password is, I think, almost known in the organization. It's one that almost everybody uses. And then once you into my laptop, you can just get into our database system because I bookmarked it.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something that you should be changing. I think if you can get into a laptop pretty easily, then if you can, then anyone can. And if they can use that data, if they're sensitive data, if they can, that leaves you very vulnerable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Del. Sorry, if I may, you're welcome to reach out to us. sales at 7C, and we can assist there because, yeah, it definitely is, that is quite a vulnerability that you've got there. We'd be happy to assist you with getting that resolved.
Absolutely. Thank you so, so much.
I think there's some other questions in the chat as well, so we can go through them. People are asking about the vulnerability test. So the vulnerability test, referring to the dark web scan, do you guys want to take that at 7C, or do you want me to explain it a little bit more?
You can go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. So one part of the vulnerability test that we can do is we can do a domain scan. We basically get your domain, put it into a report, and we will then essentially produce a report for you guys to tell you, have there been any data breaches? Again, a bit like what we were saying with the company that was hacked, it's likely that there were data breaches that led to that password being exposed. So we can essentially give you an insight into what is exposed on your company, first and foremost. We'll then send you the report, you can review it. It will give you some examples of end users with data breaches too. And then usually what we do with that is we come up with the next steps. It's often worth testing the vulnerability even further by doing a phishing campaign as well. So we have a better idea of how users are using their emails, if there's any data breaches, and also how vulnerable they are to phishing. If they did receive a phishing attack, would they click on it? How would they react? So that gives us a better understanding of the vulnerability. Okay, and with the bring your own device policy, I guess it depends if it depends. It's more about the email really, because if they're using a company email rather than a personal email, it's still the same. So just to answer your question there, Phil, about the vulnerability being checked with an org with a bring your own device policy, it's still the same if they're using a professional email. If they use a personal email, it's a bit trickier to test them on the phishing, but we can still assess their vulnerability to the training at least. That's another part of it. There's a question on the cost. Guys, do you want to take the commercial question about the cost of the vulnerability test?
Yeah, I did send a response to Peter, just saying that we'll reach out because it depends on the scope of that test.
Great. Okay, just reading that the question from Afrida there. At work, the whole organization uses the same password, but we also have a Google account on the same computers. How vulnerable is my personal data? I would say vulnerable, very vulnerable. If you're all using the same passwords, that is not recommended. You all should be having individual passwords. You should all be updating your passwords regularly as well. Typically every 6 months to a year is advised. Essentially, you guys might trust each other internally. There's an internal threat as well. There is also a bigger external threat of people potentially getting that password. If they get that one password, the first thing that they're going to do is try and hack one account with the same password. They're then going to try it again or a variation of it. It's essentially, yeah, you shouldn't be having the same passwords really. And yeah, like Cameron says, a password manager, that's a very good thing. I guess it's slightly different to what we do, but it combines very well. Having a password manager is going to massively help you. Essentially what that can do for people that don't know, you can have your password in an account, so you log in and you get it's usually with MFA as well, so it will send you a code to your device to tell you to then, well, allow you to log in, and then you'll be able to unveil the password that you have for that specific account. I know it can get confusing having multiple passwords for multiple devices, so having a password manager massively helps with that, and it is the most secure way of doing it. I can see we've got a raised hand there. I'm just going to take the question here. How do you spot a scam hacker email? And then we'll move on to the question with the raised hand. So Daphne, to answer your question, there's a few giveaways, really. We delve into it a bit more on the training courses. There's a few different ways that it can be. Usually on a basic level, often spelling mistakes can be a sign. That's not the only sign. Some people might just spell things wrong, but it's usually a bit of a giveaway. Also, the domain that the email comes from. If it comes from an email that is, if it was maybe 7C, but with 2 N's, for example, .co.za, that would be something to look out for. Usually these hackers use a very similar domain, but not quite the right one. If you do click on any links, usually you'll be directed to maybe a landing page that will have a fake URL at the top as well. And then another best practice is always question an email that seems too good to be true or really asks for an emotional response from you. These hackers tend to use attacks that are going to be things like you've won some money, or your payment has been delayed, or maybe in the UK we get a lot about parcels. If you've ordered something, your parcel has been delayed, click this link. So it's usually something that trying to get an emotional response out of you as well. Was there a question? I see a raised hand there somewhere. Not sure if whoever's raised their hand maybe on mute.
Bongani Shabalala, did you have a question?
Maybe not, but I'm sure if there are any questions following this, you can reach out to 7C. We can also help out if there are any questions that maybe arise after this. There is one more question. Monitored work laptops have apps we work on that needs you to use a Google account. Is there a way to keep my personal information from being accessed by the company it monitors? That's a good question. We might need to have a look at what it is that you got. Oh, IT specialist. Oh, so you have apps that need to be accessed by the IT department, essentially. Essentially, again, it depends if you've got an account that needs to be accessed by a password. I guess maybe it depends on the privileges as well that the people have. I think we'd need to look into that a little bit more, Frida, to see specifically what you have, what access you have, because I guess it depends on what app it is and who has access and what level of access they have as well. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, you're speaking to Susanna. I'm from SA Lube in Germiston. I wanted to find out, let's say, example, an email gets intercepted from a scammer or a hacker. Is there a way, or are there any protocols that are put in place that would notify us as a company that our details are being changed at that point of whatever that's being done by them?
So as if a hacker was changing your
Yes. So
your password.
example, we had an incident where one of our team members sent through a pro forma invoice to our customer with our banking details attached. And somehow that email got intercepted and they were able to change our banking details. And then that email got sent through to our customer. But we
Right.
only found out after our customer had made the payment and whatnot, our banking details had changed. And they sent us proof that, look, your email address is not this. Well, they sent the email to us, but when we investigated, we saw that our email address was changed, our banking details were changed. So is there a way, I don't know, on the back end or in regards to the firewall side that can notify us that our details are being changed or no?
I guess it depends on what they've changed, because if they've just sent out a fake invoice and just put their own bank details in,
Yeah.
rather than actually go to your bank and request a change, then I guess that's, a different thing. I mean, hackers are going to use a fake email to send you an email. They might even try and impersonate your internal team. So they're going to use a fake email, but they essentially, you can sign up for a domain anywhere. You can go online and set up an email with a fake domain today, and it would be quite simple. And then you can use that email to then attack a company with fake emails. What usually happens is you might have Microsoft or Google or whatever it is, firewalls in place. They should block a lot of these types of attacks. You might see that they go to the spam or they get held in the quarantine. Essentially, that's a good thing. That's one part of the technology doing its thing.
Okay.
But I guess the real threat is that email that does get through those firewalls, because they do land. If they arrive to the right person who reads that and clicks the link, that's the problem. That's where we need to. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about people signing up for domains. You won't know that somebody has signed up for an email that looks like yours. The bank situation, I guess it depends if they've managed to contact your bank, but I think the bank should have a pretty secure process in place to verify that it is the right person that's changing those details. So that should, I imagine what happened there is they just used their own banking
they
details.
changed their own details.
Yeah,
Okay.
so just that. But yeah, what we really, I guess what we're focusing on in that sense is somebody sends you a dodgy email, it does get through the firewalls. How do you spot that that's a fake email? Maybe you verify that the bank details are not the same, but there are going to be other giveaways about that email not being legitimate as well that we need to prepare the end users for.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thank you for all the questions. I hope that what we've shared this morning has made one thing clear. The risks we've discussed are not abstract or distant. They are very real and they affect all of us. We've shown how breached emails and leaked credentials can be weaponized, how ransomware and weak passwords can bring down even a 150-year-old business, and how attackers use trust and human error as their most effective tools. But we've also shown that there are practical steps you can, we've also shown that there are practical steps that you can